Hey guys, and welcome to another day in isolation. Today I got a different video. I'm gonna rank the discography of Aphex Twin. Richard D. James, also known as Aphex Twin, is sort of an intimidating figure in the electronic music field, with his impact and the amount of output he's had over his 20 plus year career. His first project was under the name Aphex with their EP Analog Bubble Bath in 1991. This EP created a lot of buzz around Richard at the time. He released his first project under the name Aphex Twin in 1992 with the Didgeridoo EP and the Xylem Tube EP, and later would drop his debut. Quick warning: I'm not going to use any. Quick warning: I'm not going to rank any of the EPs because they're not albums, obviously, but like the Come to Daddy EP, the Didgeridoo EP, etc. I'm not going to rank those, even though they are incredible. I'm not going to rank them in the albums. Now onto the rankings. At number 6, we have his most recent album, Syro. Richard's first release under the Aphex Twin moniker since his 2001 album, Drukqs, is another shift of music style, making more funky and rhythmic songs rather than the usual fast-paced releases. This is probably Aphex Twin's most accessible record, with the catchy melodies and the fun nature of this album. Richard opts for a more electronic and robotic sound, which can be a fault or even to its benefit. In this case, it's beneficial as he again mixes his ambient past with these robotic sounds and beautiful synths. The thing I love about this album is that there's always something going on. It's never stagnant at all. And it's always captivating you in some way, whether it be with the funky melodies or with the incredible drum work. Although the highs are incredibly high, the lows are here too, with weak songs here and there lacking originality, which is pretty uncommon for an Aphex Twin album. But nevertheless, this is a great comeback album. Number 5, we have I Care Because You Do, released in 1995. This is a very important album in the Aphex Twin discography, as it acts as a turning point for Richard, moving away from his ambient and long-form build-ups of his last two records and returns to his acid techno roots. This album mixes the ambient soundscapes of his past two albums with the very technical and precise drum patterns to bring us a unique experience that I personally have never heard before. The album's lead single, Ventolin, is one of the harshest IDM tracks ever recorded, with the production being so aggressive it just forces you to bop your head. The next couple tracks, Come On You Slags and Start As You Mean To Go On, however, is the most telling of what was to come for the next Aphex Twin era. With the frantic drum patterns and the spacey and mysterious melodies, it's an indicator of what Aphex would do on his next release. This album is not sticking to one sound, however, as the track Alberto Balsam is really as chill as they come, which is pretty rare for an Aphex Twin song. But obviously this is pretty rough around the edges because it's his first step outside of ambient music, and not all of it really sticks. But nonetheless, it is a great album. Number 4, we've got the Richard D. James album, released in 1996. Richard takes a whole new approach to his music for this album. Actually, most of it was recorded on his Macintosh computer and was said to have taken longer than any of his other releases to record. This is where Richard really steps out of his comfort zone. Rather than the slow-paced and melodic ambient techno nature of his other albums, he opts for the more frantic drum and bass style tracks. The first track 4 instantly grabs your attention. Without any proper build-up, it goes straight to the point. Richard is immediately showing us that this isn't going to be like his other LPs. The drums are berserk yet intricate, and the melody is quite mysterious but weirdly catchy. This is the tone throughout most of the track list, with tracks such as Cornish Acid and Yellow Calcs taking heed, and even On Peak and Can Marth taking it to the extreme. He doesn't stray too far away though from his ambient roots, as tracks such as Fingerbib and Girl Boy Song take the slower build-ups of his earlier albums and incorporate it with fast tempo and frantic drums. And the album ends on such an enigmatic track with Logan Rockwich that uses a multitude of odd instruments, and he manages to fit them all together. This album was my first introduction to Aphex Twin, and it immediately stuck. Number 3, we have the 2001 album Drukqs, or Drukqs, however you say it. Richard's fifth studio album is probably the most mind-boggling and divisive one yet. I mean, just look at the reception. In fact, this wasn't even supposed to come out. He decided to release Drukqs primarily to circumvent a potential leak after he accidentally left behind an MP3 player containing 282 of his unreleased tracks on a plane. But thank God he did release it, because it is absolutely incredible. It takes what the Richard D. James album did and turns it up a notch, with even more rapid and chaotic drum patterns and the ominous melodies that are put behind it. It's also mixed with tracks of the breathers, some being only piano ballads and just straight ambience. And I'm not going to point out any of the tracks because I cannot pronounce them, they're just fucking gibberish. One gripe I do have with this album though is that some of the tracks are a bit of a lull. But the highs on this album are some of the highest of his career. I came into this album without any real expectation, just a slight knowledge of what it was going to sound like. But when it came on, I was absolutely blown away with how far he was taking drill and bass from the Richard D. James album. And number 2, we have his debut album, Selected Ambient Works 85 to 92, that was released in 1992. Aphex Twin's debut album holds to be one of the greatest debut albums in electronic music history. The album contains some of the earliest sounds of ambient techno, and it helped push the genre forward. Its long and drawn out passages are what makes this album really special. Even though these progressions are pretty long, there's always something going on, like in the track The. Most of the track is just a single drum loop, but in the background there are beautiful and silent synths along with the inaudible dialogue. It always keeps your attention with hypnotic bass lines and melodies. Richard's use of bass is absolutely incredible in tracks like Ages Polis, where the bass line jumps from being at the forefront to return to the background, or in We Are the Music Makers, where it's used sparsely to create grooves. And although the title says ambient, the only encounter we get of ambience is on the 5th track, I, acting as a sort of a break in between. The track is very soothing and creates a calming atmosphere. And then we return to Green Calcs that can hardly be called ambient. The track is actually kind of the opposite. There's a lot going on with a strange melody and warping effects in the background. Green Calcs seems sort of like a precursor for what was to come later from albums like the Richard D. James album. And this track really stands as an enigma on the track list. Scott Key, Seventh Path, and Head Film take a darker route, using the bass and synths as tools to create a disturbing atmosphere. Delphium and Actium perfectly round off the album, with Actium's bass line being so catchy and entrancing. And this album was a huge step forward for the electronic genre and brought in a whole new sound. And the fact that Richard brought out this masterpiece on his debut is absolutely incredible to me. Number 1, we have Selected Ambient Works Volume 2, released in 1994. In Richard's sophomore album, he goes further down the road of ambience, taking a turn from the more dancier tracks of the first volume and opting for more longer form and textured ambient compositions. Richard said that the sounds on this album were inspired by lucid dreams, and upon waking, he would attempt to recreate the sounds and record them. And it really does sound like it, with the use of percussions really few and far between, and the occasional vocals. The album is mostly just airy sounds. Although this has been compared to the works of Brian Eno and John Cage, I feel that the sound was damn near perfected on this album. He took minimalism and made it sound absolutely gigantic. The first 3 tracks are filled with dreamy synths and airy production, but this comes to a halt at the 4th track, where it starts to become more haunting and atmospheric. The use of percussion increases, with tracks like 8 and 9 being the first line of the drums. The tracks stay dark and haunting until around Blue Calcs, which is the only track with a name really, and it's similar to the start, where it creates a huge atmosphere around itself. Track 15 may be the most similar to Selected Ambient Works 85 to 92, with the track actually having some sort of rhythm to it. It's kind of an enigma on the track list, with it being the only one that can induce adrenaline. And the thing I love about this album is its range of sound and style throughout the track list. It goes from light ambient to dark ambient to ambient techno and even IDM to a certain extent. And this is really shown through the sounds of the final 3 tracks on the album, with one being a dark ambient and haunting experience, the next being a light-hearted track that still has you on edge, and the final being a larger-than-life atmospheric experience that ends the album perfectly. This album's versatility in sound is one of the many reasons why this is the best Aphex Twin album. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed making this video. I really enjoyed diving into Aphex Twin's discography. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see ya.